And good morning. I'm your host, Matt Morgan. And you know what? I'm not even sure. I think at this point, we're going to figure out what we're going to call this podcast. Because it's not going to go on our main channel. I think it's going to be called Car Musings. I'm thinking Car Musings sounds like a good title. And I know it's probably about 4 or 5 episodes in, but I think this is where I'm going to go with. Car Musings sounds like a good name for the podcast. So yeah, I guess you probably figured out that I've collected a bunch of these and then, I've released them. Anyways, I'm your host, Matt Morgan, and good morning to you. This morning, we'll figure out what we're talking about on another early morning of driving child to practice. So here's the thing, recent experience. I was called to the office to, you know, an in-person requirement for whatever reason to show up. And, it's a bit of a fuss. You got to do all the prep work and everything else and put on the proper attire and all that stuff. But it's interesting. It's like you're told there's a world of party going on, a whole situation going on, why you should be in and socialize, interact, and blah, 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 blah. And then you get there and it's just like, it's not what was advertised in the brochure. It's kind of like one of those, really? So you sold me on this concept. I should come in and interact and everything else. And it is the most dry, boring, uneventful, uncreative, uneducated. I mean, it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time to even shower. It was crazy. Anyways, I think what I want to talk about today, which got me thinking about this one, especially when you go in those social scenes, those social situations, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whatever the case may be. The situation is, you know, people really have to learn to stop and try to see a situation from all angles. Like, you can only see the world through your own eyes. It takes a really big skill to be able to see the world through other people's eyes. Idiot. Freaking drivers this morning. So that's an art. That is definitely an art, to be able to see the world through other people's eyes. And, you know, we can only go through the motions in which we go through. Now, some people don't even care what everyone else thinks or what anyone else thinks. They just do their thing and, have no understanding, no empathy. They don't care, but they're self-serving, self-centered. It's unfortunate, but you gotta understand that, situational times happen beyond your control. You can't really do much about it. You know, it's just one of those things, right? Like, I'll give you a situation that happened yesterday. And maybe it's me overthinking it, but I can imagine the optics, because I always try to be the fly at the corner of the room looking down on everything. I'm going to this thing. It's a catered lunch after the seminar. That's fine. It's all good. I like good food. Who doesn't? But I'm on the fluffy side, so automatically I have a bias against me. So I have that debate: should I eat? Should I not eat? It is what it is, right? You can shy away from the world, or you can enjoy it. I choose to enjoy it. So you know what? The seminar is done. I don't rush to the food, which is the expectation, because I'm the largest one in the room. I wait for everybody else. I'm not going to be that cliche, classic fluffy guy. Oh, that automatically goes to the food, because that's my main mission in life, is to feed my face. So it's just interesting. I take my time. I'm always thinking of the optics. I'm always thinking about what everyone, their viewpoint. Do I care? No. But I have to try to debunk the whole, stigma, the whole a vision that people are seeing, and those are the ignorant people, the arrogant people, the ones that, it's a character flaw in themselves. But you got to try to debunk this. You have to try to get them to see a different side of things. Anyways, all that aside, I don't rush the food. I really don't care if I eat or not. But I made the effort to come here. I'm gonna grab a sandwich. I'm gonna grab a wrap. I'm not gonna feed my face, but okay, fair enough. But I'm also a big advocate about not wasting food because there's a lot of people that go without food. So, I want to make sure that it doesn't go to waste, doesn't hit the garbage, all that stuff. Anyways, so, I have a conservative portion, kind of emulating everybody else, what they're having. That's fine. All of a sudden, I notice, okay, it's a full room. Everybody's engaged in conversation. You do the polite etiquette thing. You eat correctly. You know, not piggy about it, all that stuff like that. I notice somebody has a roast beef. I'm like, I like roast beef. I'm like, I'm going to grab a roast beef. So between conversations, I excuse myself. I grab myself a roast beef. Talk about the timing. We go from a room of a dozen people. It's almost like that was their cue. Their cue was, we'll wait for the fluffy guy to get more food, and then we all leave. And that's exactly what happened. I started eating in on this next half sandwich of roast beef. Wouldn't you know it? Everybody starts bailing. Everybody starts leaving. Everybody's done. Here I am, that stereotypical cliche fluffy guy, still feeding his face, sitting in the conference room while everybody has exited. I'm the last one there, still feeding my face. They're like, I can just imagine the thoughts on people's mind. Oh, isn't that just, we expected that, or isn't that just the way it is? I saw that coming, and I'm sitting there going, wow, can you guys be that judgmental? Can you be that judgmental? I was raised not to waste food. I was raised to be thankful for having what you have, right? If you start something, you finish it. Optics aside, I don't care. Optics be damned. I'm not gonna waste the food because of your viewpoint, of your opinion. I'm not gonna do a negative in order to feed your negative. So, anyways, I was just like, oh. But this kind of goes hand in hand to our last podcast about people being judgmental and stuff like that. It's really a big, it's a fine-tuned art. It's a fine-tuned art if you can actually see through somebody else's eyes, right? Right? That's a fine-tuned art. You have to be able to try to see the bigger picture. Try to see all angles of a situation. Try to be compassionate to understand. Try to see the world through somebody else's shoes, but at the same time, not be so quick to make assumptions or conclusions because of because of the first thing that you come across. You should make a point of trying to see the bigger picture of it all. And I know it's difficult. It's even more difficult to explain. But the world is not just the way you see it. Okay? We all see the world like it's our own story and through our own eyes. And that's what it comes down to. We think that the way we see the world is the way everybody else sees the world, and that's not the case. It's really different angles. You gotta remember, you're talking mindsets, you're talking, experiences, you're talking walks of life, you're talking, even your location of where you live. I mean, these are all different things which help mold a person's view of the world. It really is. It really all contributes to that. And even the smallest detail actually helps contribute to the way a person views the world and their opinions of the world and their overall understanding of the world. So not everybody's going to view the world the same way. You could view the world way one, let's call it way one, and then your neighbor, who you think that all the conditions would be similar, sees the world in way two. But you have different lives. You might live in the same vicinity, okay. So that's not something that's going to influence. But you got to look at cultural. You have to look at interaction. You have to look at all these other things. You know, what drives them, what they're passionate about, what their views are. I mean, these are all factors which actually help contribute to the way the person views the world. So don't automatically assume because you make a knee-jerk reaction looking at, the fluffy guy feeding his face, having a nice lunch, enjoying himself in a room, that he's a glutton, or she's a glutton, or they're a glutton, however you want to say it, and that's all they do, and they're slobs and make a whole bunch of negative comments and connotations. That's not the case. It's a simple case of somebody was enjoying lunch, like thin people and the in-shape people and people of all sizes, but they decided, you know what, there's some food that's left over, no one's having it, don't want it to go to waste, I would enjoy that, I'm going to go have that because that I know tastes good, and they go and have it, and just the way the timing goes, situational. But that one little simple gesture, that one little simple act of innocence, actually, for that matter, gets completely twisted and construed in just everything else on the fact of optics, on the fact of optics, and people are drawing conclusions. People are jumping to conclusions, they're drawing conclusions, they're, automatically judging and everything else, and it's a shame, it really is, that people can't objectively, I don't know how my English is today, they can't fairly look at all angles and the situations leading up to situations and judge everything in accord accordingly, right? It's unfortunate. I don't know. It was just a complete write-off of a day, but it fueled my argument about the fact is that certain situations don't call for certain things. You just have to try to, be objective when there's a situation, and don't look at the obvious for what it is. Look at all the possible angles that could lead up to a situation before you jump to conclusions, right? Assessing a situation takes more than just your first gut instinct. You kind of have to try to sit back and look at all the angles of it and then make a logical, educated thing. People are not going to put themselves in certain situations on purpose. So if that's the automatic conclusion that you're making, chances are that's not the initial one that was intended, right? So then you should really start thinking to yourself, well, okay, it seems too obvious that it's that situation. What other possible scenarios could lead up to the situation? And then, of course, make your final judgment on that. That would be my advice. But again, as I said, this is a very highly skilled arts to be able to learn, and the basic person cannot understand this kind of thing. It's beyond them. It's too big of a concept that, Way too much thinking for them. So, as I said, it's gonna be a very small percentage that would be able to handle that level. All that aside, all that aside, I guess my point of today is when you see a situation, don't automatically jump to the quickest conclusion. Okay, no matter what it is, try to sit back and observe and quickly deduct all possible scenarios that could lead up to what you're observing for that situation. Now, you're going to ask yourself, well, Mad Morgan, why should I even bother wasting my time on this? Well, for a lot of reasons. One, you have a better understanding of yourself and a better understanding of people. Two, you probably learned something. And three, there's times that you can look like less of an asshole. Really, less of an asshole because you've actually taken the time to objectively look at all possible angles that led up to a particular situation. That's what I'm saying, you know, and that's the biggest thing, and that happens in so many cases. I'll give you an example. I'm driving. I got some morning assholes, that have their super bright beams on and everything else, and they're wondering why, I'm flipping them the bird or flashing my high beams. They're not taking the time to assess the situation as to my angle of things, right? They're only jumping to the conclusion of what the first glance is. I mean, I'm better prepared for it. I've thought about possible solutions. So, I got them coming and I got solutions for it. But you can't always prepare and have a solution for a situation. Anyways, I'm going to conclude that today on that note. Just try to be a little empathetic and try to see all angles of a situation. That's my takeaway for today. Just try to see all angles of a situation before you start jumping to conclusions. Because we live in a world where there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of the classic, watch my left hand, what's going on. Watch what's going on over here, so distract you from what's going on over there. You see that a lot in politics. They're basically keeping you up with some sort of BS, clickbaity type information, mainstream in the news to distract you from what's really going on. So the skills that I talk about today could benefit you in a lot of different ways. Look at the bigger picture. Look at all angles. Don't look at the most obvious one. Look at all possible ones. And that'll serve you with understanding the world at large, too. Because if you look at the media, you look at the glorified headlines, which everybody's talking about, all this big, crazy news and everything else, that's really not what's going on. Like Elon Musk, decides to ban all sheep in the country. You look at that, it's such a ridiculous headline. People are talking about it, they're gossiping about it and everything else. What you don't understand is that on page 23 at the very bottom of the news report for the day, in a small little print that is reported because it's in the media, what else is going on? Donald Trump decides to kill off all the people in a small country. You miss that part because you're too busy with the obvious headline of the sheep being banned. So, as ridiculous as it is, that scenario happens in a lot more situations than you realize. You just have to actually make a point of observing all that. All right. I'm going to conclude this. I'm not going to spin off into another rant. I'm exhausted. It's Friday. I'm just going to do what I gotta do. So I'm your host, Matt Morgan. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening. I hope you have an amazing day. And since I said yes, it is Friday, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing weekend. And I will see you next episode, my friends. All right. Bye for now.